And it occurred to me that those wonderful chords could be an accompaniment for this. So that started me on the road to ruin.
And the point is, the more things change, the more they say the same.
Yeah, well, I think also the point is just that it's not that the Brahms ought to be played with jealousy. It's just that musicians have always fooled around, and one of the things about older music is you don't always know it. There's a Bach piece called the Goldberg Variations that he does that same kind of thing. He combines two folk songs. One's about sauerkraut or something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't know that anymore because we don't know those songs, you know. But to his audience,
yes,
he heard it was like in the middle of this very serious piece, it's as if he had I've Been Working on the Railroad come in.
Anyone I've read Miss Sills' biography, and you had memorized, I don't know, how many operas by the time you were 12?
Oh, a lot, a lot.
And that was because your mother had 78s, which literally...
She had Gallicorti recordings. She played them morning, noon, and night. I memorized them the way kids memorize commercials today. And so opera was a way of life with me. I knew the make-believe ballroom was on because my brothers played it all, had Martin Block on all the time.
But there would have been we would never have, I wonder, however wonderful your talent, if we would have ever heard of you or enjoyed your gift if your mother had not lit that fire as a child.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I think a child has to be exposed to any kind of music. I mean, if a child is raised in a house that has no paintings on the wall, and there's no music in its life, it is a deprived child, not only culturally or socially, but emotionally deprived.
But in this media age, when the rock and roll radio station has such a wonderful hook, and we have so many competing, I don't want to be Father Time saying, ain't this awful? I think rock and roll is a very important entertainment, cultural addition to our national life. The point is this, that in this age of professional capitalistic survival, our children are not likely to be exposed to anything different because it doesn't pay bills. It doesn't...
That's because we've always had the attitude that serious music is just that, serious. We're not supposed to think of going to the opera as having fun. That's, the big fat lady with the horns coming out of her head and wears the big breastplate. That's so passé and so stupid and so snobbish by itself that I don't even have patience for that.
Yes.
You have to break down barriers for children, or for adults. If you know that you're going to a theater for 3 hours and going to sit and listen and not understand one word of what you're listening to, why should you go? You might as well go home, turn on the radio very loud, and not pay attention. So I think I've put up subtitles, like going to a foreign film. Why sit there and listen to all these people speaking French, Italian, and German?
Yeah.
You don't have to be multilingual to enjoy it.
You took your hits for that, didn't you? Didn't you take... I mean, not everybody was thrilled with that.
Absolutely. Oh, my God. Listen, when I was a singer, I was a prima donna. When I became the general director of an opera house, I was, a punching bag.
A tyrant, though, too.
Absolutely. Oh, no question about it.
You have mic singers as well, have you not?
Yes, I certainly...
And that was not met very well.
Well, I don't do it in opera, so to speak. I do it where the dialogue is because we are performing in a 3,000-seat auditorium. And it's unrealistic to think what it would be like for 2.5 hours to have to sing and project, and in between everything have to talk that way. Singers are not as well trained with their speaking voices as they are. So I enhance. Once I made a mistake. I put on body mics on the people, and our theater is not equipped to handle them. We don't have the sophistication. I'd love to have it.
What happened? You got noise and yellow
snap,
cab.
Crackle, pop. It sounded like we were pouring cereal all night. So I'm going to avoid body mics. But no, I'm going to not enhance the singing voice. But whenever you come in this spoken dialogue, I assure you, the spoken dialogue, if you look, there'll be 6 floor microphones helping the singers. We switch them off because that's what opera's all about. You got to really, this is what separates the kids from the adults. To be an opera singer.
The story, the ambiance, the thrust.
You got to be able to fill that house with that singing voice. That's what opera is all about, not just speaking voice. That's what the stage, in terms of the Broadway theaters and the plays, are.
In advance of Mr. Marsalis sharing with us his gift, let me ask Dr. Taylor if you would be kind enough to change seats.
Sure.
With Professor Schickele. Now, you have shared with viewers of the Sunday morning, the CBS telecast,
You mention the other neck book on this?
Sure, we're all
Okay.
friends. Listen, this day and age, we better be. We may be all reporting to the same person. Dr. Taylor, sir, you do something wonderful with this instrument to share with your followers the construction of jazz, its vocabulary, its language, and to make it perhaps just a little bit more, make us candidates for enjoying its unique structure. Sir, can you do that for us?
Well, one of the things that jazz is a way of playing, and it's a repertory of pieces, and many people wonder where the melody goes. And so I'd like to just do something I do for some of my students. You can take a melody, say, by George Gershwin, this one, They Can't Take That Away From Me. Now, in order to make it jazz, you have to begin to use the vocabulary of jazz. So that means you have to alter all of the elements that, of the music. You have to alter the rhythm, the harmony, and the melody. So if I alter the rhythm and put it more into a jazz context, it might be something like, I might do something like this. Now, just to change the melody rhythmically is not enough. I might want to do something to the harmony like this. Well, having changed the rhythm and the harmony, I can now change the melody like this. I've now come up with a new piece of music, so I can just, that's what we do when we improvise. We come up with a new piece of music, spontaneous composition.
And how much as you go, talent and improvisation is part of contemporary jazz literature?
Oh, it's a great part of it, but there are many pieces in the repertoire written by Duke Ellington, by Thelonious Monk, by more contemporary composers, Joe Zawinul and people like that, which are set pieces, which you improvise around in the same way that I took the Gershwin piece. You can take a piece by Wynton Marsalis or by someone else and improvise on that also.
Right. Do you feel that these art forms have been quite literally blown away by the large black boxes that adorn the stages of rock and roll today? Here's my point. Such a wonderfully challenging, often erotic and absorbing sound as jazz is not likely to be introduced to the experience of the young American growing up. And if that's the case, can we ever put the lightning back in the bottle for a child who missed it, just as her 78 records, her mother's records?
We're doing that in schools.
You think?
Yeah, to a great extent. The jazz is being taught in schools, and in most of the schools you have an orchestra and a chorus that sings the European
good,
tradition.
though? Doesn't that place it in the academic sort of, you must learn this, sit still and take notes? No,
not necessarily, because many of the teachers who are working with this are young and enthusiastic, and sometimes the same age as, or near the same age as their students.
I'm glad you called. Hi.
Hi there, Phil.
Hi.
I just want to let you know, I'm a little different than your panelists. I have made a transition from being an actress and a singer in cabaret to studying opera and becoming an opera singer. I found the transition was so easy because it made me appreciate all the music that I do love.
Yeah.
And it made it so much easier for me to make the tone transition to being a classical singer.
I think you know it. Meet a woman who worked a boat. Didn't you work? You worked a ship.
I worked a lot of things.
You played a ship, did you not?
Yeah, a lot, yes.
And was it Gilbert and Sullivan?
No, just anything they wanted to hear.
Popular as well?
Anything. I played, I accompanied myself on the piano. I sang in after-hours club.
Oh, you did a club. That's
sure.
right.
I did boats, too. I was very interested because what you don't realize is that while jazz is improvisational, so is opera. When we do Handel, we do it straight through the way Mr. Handel wrote it. And we're allowed to go back and repeat the same thing, and we call it ornamentation because, of course, we're classical. We can't talk about improvisation. We ornament it. And we change the melodic line a lot, although we have to be a little bit more careful about how much we meddle. But in the bel canto repertoire, the same thing. When you do Lucia, you do one verse through of, let's say, the mad scene, then you go back, And then the second time, you're supposed to do all kinds of funny cadenzas and trills and runs that were in the style of that period. So we are really, all music is interrelated, and I don't see that it should be separated in cubbyholes.
Has this woman, has her opportunity for becoming an opera star or anything, contributor, part of the ensemble, been undermined in any way by her exposure to the...
Of course
no.
not.
All right.
Well,
all
who
right.
cares?
Why do I think it might be?
Because that's old hat.
It is,
You know, that
okay.
you're thinking of the lady with the diamond band around her head who goes to the opera. You should come and see the kids in their jeans up in the 4th and 5th ring.
Really?
They paid $8 to come. It's $5 and $6 to go to the movie. For $8, you can sit in a marvelous seat in the New York State Theater, enjoy an opera. You don't understand the language? Terrific. I've translated it for you. The people are skinny, attractive. Maybe they're not so skinny, but they're young, and they look the parts they play. They act it. That's old-fashioned, you know, the big fat lady coming down and striking poses.
Okay, no, it wasn't... no, my question had more to do with...
Obviously, you've touched a sore point.
I have, yes. Let me try and make... here's my question. It's not so much about stereotype and the opera's not over fat ladies sings, etc. All those jokes. It's about shaping... It's about this woman's ability to meet the challenge of the literature after having sung for... How old are you?
32.
Baby for opera. Very young for an opera singer. That's the nice thing about opera.
Okay, but she hasn't damaged her voice in any way or her... No.
I can't tell. All I can tell you is when she stands up in front of the audience, they're not going to say, not going to like her because she sang in an after-hours club or did boats.
If that were the case, you would have gotten...
Absolutely. What they're going to say is that a beautiful thing she's doing or isn't it?
Yeah.
And if it's not, they should get up and leave. It's the same thing in every art form. You're not having a good time, go home.
Your Brooklyn father must have been a little bit distracted by your playing a club.
My Brooklyn father didn't think nice ladies went on the stage. When I was 9, he said to me, your mother doesn't drink, your mother doesn't smoke, you're not going to either. And at 9, it hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah. And you never did.
And I never did. That was a big period at the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
It was a whole other era.
Right. In a moment, we want you to enjoy the gift of Wynton Marsalis, whom Time Magazine, in a review of this young man, quotes an authoritative figure as saying, here's a fellow, here's a talent that quite literally could be, has the potential to be. We don't want to, this is terrible talking on these, the greatest in the history of anything. Greatest trumpeter ever. I mean, how'd you like that billing?
I to pick up the trumpet now,
now he's got to play. And we'll give him that opportunity and this audience a chance to get in on this conversation. Who are we as a nation, as a culture? What do we want our kids to hear? What is it? How do we enrich their own experience regarding the arts? Not bad questions, and we'll be back in just a moment. There's a Hall of Fame of musical geniuses from our own culture. And here, certainly as a young man who's making his way toward that classification, Wynton Marsalis' quintet includes Charnett Moffett, Kenny Kirkland, Jeffrey Watts, and Wynton's brother, Branford Marsalis. Will you kindly, is this the Nearness of You? Is that the...
This is the Nearness of You.
All right, we're ready for you. Because Miles Davis said, "Oh no, not the trumpet, not the trumpet." Is there? Is there a more challenging instrument? And is there an instrument that can reach up and bite you when you least expect it? Your instrument was first. You were introduced to the instrument by Al Hurt. Is that so?
Well, I got my first trumpet from Al Hurt. He didn't introduce me to it, really.
Your father played, did he, with...
Right, my father was pianist with his band then. I was 6 at the time, so, you know, I didn't really want to play trumpet.
And so you did it for Dad first, then?
Oh, no, I didn't do it.
When did you do it?
I just had it. My brother actually was playing clarinet and piano. I started playing the trumpet when I was 12. I got serious and really practiced. Before then, I used to put firecrackers in it.
What was the difference? When no small question to parents who wonder how long do you push?
Well, first of all, my father and mother didn't push me into music. Right now, I have a brother that's 8. He's like a genius, talent-wise. He has much better ears than either my brother or I. But
well,
my father
maybe you better speak for yourself, Branford. Go ahead.
He would agree with that. I mean, and I find myself wanting to say, well, man, make him practice. And I tell my fathers, make him take ear training, man. My father's like, look, man, if he wants to play, I'll lay the music out. My father and mother provided us with information. And that's the most important thing, the proper information.
So, well, let's understand this now. If the spark is there, you fan it and hope it'll ignite.
See, no, you don't. You can't push people into doing something that's serious and something that requires solitude. You see, to play an instrument and try to play something as spiritual.
Takes you off second base, first of all.
Well, just to play something as spiritual as jazz music, something as obscure as that in this country, especially secondary education. You have to really have a love for the music, and you have to study it, and you have to have a love for your instrument, which comes from hours of practicing and being with yourself.
Yeah. But apparently it came naturally to you. Nobody had to lean over.
Well, the desire to do something serious came naturally to me.
That's what I mean.
Because I got tired of seeing all the cheesing and clowning that was going on. I just said, well, man, I don't want to be a comedian. I want to do something serious. And it's really hard, man, to try to get people to understand where music is coming from.
This mini bio we have here is apparently consistent, is it? With
yes, it is.
I think one of the things that's interesting is that a lot of classical musicians wish people could see that it's certainly serious. Anything good is serious, even comedy, but that it's not stuffy. And in the jazz world, the opposite has tended to happen. They've said, hey, come on, this is serious. Don't... And the thing is, when you get either extreme, it gets bad. One of the things I envy about the jazz world is you can give a light title to a serious piece. You can call a piece Celery Stalks at Midnight or Bike Up the Strand or something like that, and then it's just a regular piece. It's not a comic piece. Whereas in classical music, you have to be super serious. You have to call it Symphony No. 7,
Yeah, but the thing is...
Go ahead,
Doc.
Jazz is America's classical music. And it takes all of the elements in our culture and makes them, it puts them in a perspective which is unique to this country. And we don't take it so serious that we can't put a very playful title to something. But it is, as Wynton says, something that you must work at. And no matter, to play well in anything. The jazz musicians like Wynton, and there's a gentleman in the back of your audience whose name is Jimmy Owens, who has expanded the range of the trumpet. People reach high Fs and Gs in classical trumpet because jazz musicians did that.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, I think it's a parent's responsibility to nurture a love for music. All children respond to music. My younger son was 3 years old. We found him one afternoon transfixed in front of the TV watching PBS. The opera was on.
The opera?
The opera. He was 3. He sat through it twice.
Really? A foreign language opera, I bet.
Absolutely. He likes Italian.
But it was translated.
No, it was not. He couldn't read anyway. That precocious he wasn't.
If I could start over again, and there are often times I wish I could as a parent, I would, first of all, I'd be sensational the second time around. Everybody would, yeah.
All we need is a good dress rehearsal.
Here's the point. I guess I would have Mozart and Bach and Beethoven and
Who's on trumpet?
Wynton on
Thelonious Monk, right.
Get it in the ear, in the experience. Yet I don't want to reduce our children to sort of computers that have been left on. That's a little.
But they should be able to hear it anyway. When I was a kid, I used to turn on the radio, and I had a choice. I could hear Duke Ellington. I could hear the Met from on the radio. I could hear all kinds of things on sustaining radio. This was not commercial radio. You got the whole opera. You got the whole performance. No commercial interruptions. And it was terrific. You can't get that on the radio. You can't get it on television anywhere.
No, you have to look for it. It's there.
Phil, I was saying to this person here during one of the breaks that I think one of the problems is that we live in an age now where for something to be called a success, you have to have 45 million people watching it or listening to it.
True.
And there are a lot of art forms which have never been mass.
Yes. I was telling him that when I ride in the car with my kids, I cannot listen to one nice song, like the Nearness of You, which happens to be my wedding song, so I'm very glad that you said it. I can't, that's dentist music to them. I mean, turn this off.
They call it elevator music, yeah. My kids do that, too. Doctor's office music.
My daughter babysat for a 6-year-old girl last year, and the girl says, you want to know what kind of music my parents like? And my daughter said, I don't know. She said, it's a real old group. So my daughter said, I don't know, who is it? She said, the Talking Heads.
I just wanted to say that I grew up with a lot of classical music because my mother is a pianist. She plays the piano. And I think that when I was growing up, I really never enjoyed really listening to it until I got older. And then I think I really began to enjoy it and really, I think I got more exposed and, you know, sort of as you get older, you sort of want to listen to it, because when you're younger, it's sort of pushed, and you don't really want to hear it.
It's about making choices, though. If you can be exposed and you can hear it, it's available to you, whether it's Mozart or whether it's Ellington or Basie or whatever it is, or whether it's any kind of opera or anything. Many people are going to see Amadeus because it's a hit picture, but they're hearing some other kind of music.
Yes, they are.
You know,
yes,
one point I would like to bring out that's very important for Americans to understand. We always want to lay at the mantle, at the altar of any European cultural achievement. Now, in jazz has revolutionized Western art, and that is the first art form in the history of Western civilization that develops itself, is introduced and formulated in the present tense. So when you look at jazz, you're seeing a totally new art form. Bach improvised, but he improvised by himself. He didn't improvise with the bass improvising and the piano and the drum. So this is like a language that is created, thought up, given structure, form, and logic in the time that it's being played in.
Yes.
And whereas I love European music, I mean, I love classical music, orchestral music. I spent many hours in rehearsal, went to Juilliard and everything. But in my heart, I know that both musics don't receive proper
attention.
But jazz is really just abused and messed over to the point of almost disgust, man.
Well,
I mean, the degree of the amount of ignorance that we have about our own art form makes me sick almost.
Yeah, you have brought, to be sure, a very passionate political perspective to your art form, and obviously that is there in your execution. It obviously enhances your will.
Well, that's what music is, social commentary.
But that's not unlike Beverly Sills has been kicking some tires for quite a long time. You have brought your considerable reputation to the whole issue of appreciating and showcasing American talent.
Absolutely.
You've had more than your share of standing ovations all over the world, and you have nothing against the foreign artists, but you, feel that we haven't...
I feel we should not have the attitude that if the name is unpronounceable, it's automatically a better opera singer than one that's pronounceable. That's all. You know, just walk in with your eyes and ears open and make a judgment of your own. That's all. If it's ugly, it's ugly. Who cares what the name is? If it's beautiful and terrific, then it doesn't matter. What happened?
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Oh, my God, I did it again.
What's the matter? You know, it's wonderful. I know how you feel.
I'm glad you like my kid sister.
Listen, you're quite literally millions of fans around the world know that your final performance was 1980. Is
yes.
That? What a wonderful way to step out there and just...
Well, I think you got to get out while they're still saying it's too soon rather than when is she ever going to quit.
Yeah.
So I figured my time had come.
Yeah, I'm not pretending to be the first person that's asked you this, but, I mean, do you miss the bell? Does the fire horse in you? I mean,
I miss the singing. I don't miss the performing. I would not like now, at this stage in my life, to get into the arena and face the bull in every sense of the word. I would not like to have to do that anymore. I do miss my 2-hour coaching in the morning. I do miss the new literature. I love the thrill of cracking the score for the first time and seeing what I can get out of it. The key word that I think you used was solitude, because the public only sees, in a sense, as close to the finished product as we can get to you. But the hours that go into that moment that you first see it is a lot of lonely hours. It's not just, well, let's pick this thing up and see what we can do with it. Not at all. It's after the learning of the notes and all the technical things. It's the loneliness of closing yourself off into a room and making an interpretation, making your stamp the way this man plays that trumpet. It's not that he's playing other notes that no other trumpet player can play. It's the way he's playing those notes. And it's the same thing with a singer. There's a lot of lonely time spent. And that word solitude is the key to what separates a very good artist from something rather extraordinary. The ability to be able to get into yourself and pull out every single thing you've got and lay it open before everybody.
First, may I say, the new thin Beverly Sills looks absolutely marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Secondly, Wynton Marsalis said that music is social commentary. My husband and I love the music of the 30s, 40s. When my 17-year-old daughter hears it, she says, boring. Isn't it possible that our fast-paced society and the constant exposure to rock and roll turns these kids off to opera, to jazz, to the music of the 30s and 40s?
No, you know, I think that's misinformation. I'm going to tell you what I think that is. Right? Let's say I listen to Louis Armstrong playing trumpet. I'll give you a good analogy. Let's say we walk into a room. Right, there's 4 books sitting there. 2 of them are the Iliad and the Odyssey. And they have dust and dirt and stuff all on top of them. And I give you 2 good books, 2 brand new, well-bound books, and one is Debbie Goes to Dallas. and the other one is, 2 things that contain no pertinent information about what it means to be human whatsoever.
Right.
So you walk into the room and you see the 2 well-bound books, and you look at the Iliad and the Odyssey, and how many people you think are going to blow the dust off the Iliad and the Odyssey and read it, rather than just pick up the 2 books that contain no information whatsoever, that are well packaged?
But we seem to have gone out of our way in this culture to make Debbie available in Dallas and everywhere else. That's the point.
But that's because that maximizes the amount of money that you can make.
Right.
That does not call upon people to expand themselves.
Okay. All right. This is not an important examination of our own culture. It's our children and what kind of entertainment. We're talking about character here, and no one is here to suggest that a little nonsense now and then is not treasured, as my grandmother would say.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, it isn't.
There's nothing wrong with nonsense. That's cool, but that's like eating dessert at dinner.
All right. I'll give you a chance to develop this point. We have some wisdom in this audience as well, and we'll be back in a moment. Among other things, our guest wants you to know that the geniuses, that is the B's, Bach, Beethoven, and all of the whole gang were just folks in many ways. Obviously, they had a
unusual.
You know, one of the reasons that they don't improvise in that style anymore is when the virtuosi used to improvise on Beethoven's work. Quite often, the improvisation would be longer than the work. So he said later for that, and he wrote out the cadenza and said, "I got it. You know, you guys won't do that anymore."
Yeah. Not much time.
Yeah.
Music is food. It's the greatest. All music is great.
Except we're serving ourselves meat and potatoes too often. That's the point. We're not...
Look how we look. Phil, just one word. Seriously, the artists play for the artists. You should play for the majority of the people who like to sing and dance. They like rhythm. The music is great, but 90% of the people want to dance and sing with the melody. They don't know it. Improvisation is great.
They
don't know the melody. They want the melody. I'm a retired musician, brother.
Yeah. Aren't we discounting the importance of rock music with children right now? Isn't the best way to get them to have an appreciation in classical and opera to get them to be interested in rock music and then get them from that angle?
No.
If they're interested, can't you develop something?
No, because rock music, generally speaking, is manufactured music. There are musicians who play in many styles, who play all kinds of things. Good music of any kind, which involves the creative process, is what we're talking about, not something which is manufactured.
Yes. Wynton Marsalis said before that his parents provided him with the information was what he used, and that I had the exact same thing. My father, since I was as young as I can remember, at least introduced me to love music. He left it up to me as I grew older to enjoy certain forms and mature in it, but he taught me to love music when I was very, very young.
Yeah. Should more operas be televised for children and for adults as well?
Yeah, it's a very expensive art form. That's the whole problem. We're not commercial, so, you know, if 3 million people watch it, as Peter was saying it's a flop, I'd have to sell out my house 1,000 nights to get 3 million people, or maybe more. So, it's crazy, but we'll expand. We'll get there.
When you're about 17 or so, it is a faster pace. But when you get older and, in a sense, mellow out, that's when this form of music accommodates those feelings that you're going through at that time. So as you mellow, it mellows with you.
When you go to an athletic event, you go with your father, he makes sure you know the names and numbers of all the players and what that game is all about. You go into a baseball stadium, football, you know what it's about. And yet we take our kids, plunk them down into an opera or a symphony, and we say, here, listen. Listen to what? We don't even bother to tell them what it's about.
It's exposure and understanding. I know that I wasn't exposed to it, but then when I was in college and I was exposed to it, I fell in love with it. So if we don't expose our children to it, they don't even know what's there.
True.
I think the solitude that Wynton was talking about is not only on the part of the creator, but on the part of the listener, too. In that a lot of rock, and I love a lot of rock, it grabs you by the throat, and you can't miss it. And there are a lot of other kinds of music that don't grab you by the throat. You got to go to it.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Is the caller there?
Yes, I am.
You wanted to say?
Wynton, this is Kim Joseph from New Orleans, and I used to play in Loyola's jazz band with your dad. And at rehearsals, he would always say, my son's going to be famous, Kim. You watch. My son's going to be famous. So I just want to say congratulations.
Hang on. Well, let's, for her and for the good times, do it again for us in the minimum amount of time we have left. What parent wouldn't want their child or young adult to be engaged in this activity? It's an interesting look.
You notice the age of these guys? You notice the age of these guys?
Yeah, that's what made me say that.
The bass player is 17.
Yeah. And we'll be back in just a moment. Billy Taylor's jazz piano is a jazz history resume, and here's Billy Taylor at the University of Texas at Austin. Wynton Marsalis